She stayed silent when he followed her, remained composed when he pulled her over, but when he humiliated her in front of everyone, that's when her father came home. It happened in the hallway between third and fourth period, right in front of everyone. Jordan Banks was walking with her binder tightly pressed against her chest, her head down, walking quickly like she always did. She wasn't shy, just focused. At 17, with early college acceptance letters already in her inbox, she was destined for valedictorian. No drama, no distractions, just her books, and her plans. But that Wednesday, everything changed. Officer Bradley Keene, the town cop assigned to work security at Melrose High in southern Arkansas, was standing near the cafeteria doors, his thumb tucked under his duty belt as if he owned the place. A few students were gathered around him, laughing at something he'd said. Jordan didn't even glance at him. She never did. As she passed, he stepped forward too close. Loud enough for others to hear, he said, "You watching where you're going, young lady?" Jordan stopped, confused. "I'm sorry," she asked, startled. Keene smirked and almost casually tilted a bottle of water forward, his hand brushing against hers. The bottle slipped, or maybe it didn't. Either way, the cold water splashed directly onto the front of her shirt. She gasped, dropping her papers. The hallway exploded into laughter, but Keene's tone didn't change. "Oops, guess someone's clumsy today." The words cut deeper than the cold water that soaked her. Jordan stood there, drenched. The laughter surrounded her, crawling under her skin like fire ants. Her shirt clung to her body, her hair was dripping, and her face burned with shame. She didn't say anything. She didn't even look at him. She just bent down, picked up her papers, and walked away. But the look in her eyes wasn't just humiliation. It was confusion and fear. Jordan didn't cry in the bathroom. She didn't cry when she changed into a new shirt in the nurse's office or when she skipped lunch to sit alone in an empty classroom. She held it all in, just like she always did. But something had shifted. This wasn't the first time Officer Keene had gone out of his way to bother her. The first time had been subtle, a stop sign near the edge of town. She was driving home from her shift at the library when headlights flashed in the parking lot where he waited, as if he knew her schedule. He said she rolled the stop sign when she hadn't. He asked questions that had nothing to do with driving, wanted to know where she was going, what was in her bag, why she looked nervous. She told her mom, but brushed it off. The second time he showed up at the library, didn't order anything, just stood by the door, arms crossed, watching her shelf books. She never got in trouble, never caused trouble. She was quiet, always respectful. So she started asking herself the question no teenager should have to ask, why me? The answer came in whispers and glances. Tyler Keene, the same age, same school, son of the cop. They shared AP history and not much else, except for a debate they'd had in class 2 months earlier. Jordan had made a solid argument about systemic inequality, and Tyler didn't like being corrected, especially not by a girl. That day she'd won. The class had clapped, his jaw had clenched. It wasn't just that, though. Tyler used to be top of the class, but now he was second. Jordan had taken that spot. People used to laugh at his jokes, but then the star point guard, Malik, started walking Jordan to class, and that's when things turned strange. Tyler began staring, whispering to friends when she walked by, posting cryptic things online. And then his dad, Officer Keene, started showing up everywhere. What Jordan didn't know was that Tyler had told his father she was disrespectful, that she started things, that she was always talking back. He twisted moments, leaving out important details, painting himself as the victim. Officer Keene believed him. No questions asked. But Jordan still didn't know the full story. All she knew was that things were getting worse. By Friday, she couldn't pretend anymore. She walked through the school like a shadow, quiet, tight-lipped, her shoulders pulled in, her eyes down. Everyone had seen the incident in the hallway. Some laughed, most stayed silent. Even though no one said it out loud, she could feel the shift. The air changed when she walked into a room. The looks, the whispers, the pity. She hated the pity most of all. During lunch, she sat alone in the back corner of the library, pretending to study. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every time someone walked by the glass windows, her heart skipped a beat. When the librarian asked if she was okay, she nodded, of course, but something inside her had cracked. That afternoon after class, Mr. Reynolds, her U.S. government teacher, caught her by the door. He was young, in his early 30s, and one of the few teachers who actually listened. He had seen what happened during the debate. He'd seen what Tyler had said, noticed the change in her after. "Jordan," he said gently, standing in the doorway. "Wait a sec." She paused, clutching her binder like it could shield her from everything. "Are you sure everything's okay?" he asked. She hesitated. "I'm fine." "Are you?" "Because I've been teaching long enough to know when a student's not fine." That was all it took. She didn't burst into tears, but her voice cracked and her shoulders began to shake. Mr. Reynolds stepped back, giving her space. Not pressure, just space. "I didn't do anything," she finally whispered. "I believe you," he said. And that was the first time someone had said that out loud. He didn't try to fix it, didn't rush her. He just asked if she wanted to talk to someone. Maybe the principal, maybe a counselor, maybe someone at the district level. Jordan shook her head. She didn't trust the system anymore. That night when she came home and saw her dad's boots by the front door, fresh mud still on the soles, she froze. He was back. Colonel Elijah Banks retired, but still carried himself like he was on duty. He still spoke like every word had weight. He hadn't told anyone he was coming home early. He just showed up when it mattered. And when he saw her face, he knew. "What happened?" he asked. Jordan stood in the kitchen, her fingers trembling as she zipped up her backpack. Her mother, Raleigh, looked up from the stove but didn't speak. Jordan looked at them both and then told them everything. The stop, the library, the hallway, the water, Tyler. She expected anger, maybe a slammed fist, a curse word, a demand to drive down to the school that night. But Elijah didn't do any of that. He just nodded once, quiet, measured, and walked into his office, closing the door behind him. He didn't come out for the rest of the night. What Jordan didn't know was that her father wasn't just listening, he was planning. Colonel Elijah Banks didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office with the door closed, surrounded by old files, a laptop he never let anyone touch, and a folder marked FIA that he hadn't opened in years. While the house stayed quiet, Elijah moved with the same precision he had used for decades on classified missions across continents. He didn't pace, he didn't rant, he gathered intel. By sunrise, he had Officer Bradley Keene's entire public record, traffic stop patterns, complaints, use of force reports, everything he could legally access, and a few documents he obtained from people who owed him favors. What he saw was a pattern. Most people wouldn't have connected the dots, but Elijah always did. And the dots spelled out one thing. Bradley Keene had a problem with young black kids who didn't know their place. And his son Tyler, same seed, different uniform. That morning, Elijah sat across from Jordan at the breakfast table. She barely touched her toast. He didn't push her. He just asked a simple question. "You trust me?" Jordan nodded. "Good," he said, sliding a manila envelope toward her. "Because this ends today." Later that afternoon, Elijah showed up at Melrose High. Not with noise, not with threats, just with presence. He didn't wear a uniform. He didn't need to. His frame alone turned heads. His voice, low and steady, carried more weight than shouting ever could. He asked to speak with the principal, a quiet woman named Denise Thornton, who'd been trying to stay out of the mess. She didn't expect a visit from a man with military posture, and cold precision in his eyes. Elijah didn't yell. He laid out the documents on her desk, fact after fact, complaint after complaint, pattern after pattern. He explained what his daughter had gone through and asked one simple thing. Do you want to fix this inside this building, or do I need to take it outside? Principal Thornton flipped through the pages, her expression shifting as she read. Elijah didn't wait for a response. He had already scheduled a meeting with a civil rights lawyer in Little Rock and a journalist from the Arkansas Tribune who had written extensively about police misconduct. Word of what was happening began to spread quickly, and the students who had laughed at Jordan in the hallway that Wednesday were no longer laughing. But Elijah wasn't there for revenge. He was there for accountability, and he wasn't done yet. By the time Monday morning arrived, a storm was brewing, not one of thunder or rain, but a storm inside the walls of Melrose High and the Pine Bluff Police Department. Before the first bell rang, Officer Bradley Keene was called into a private meeting with Principal Thornton and a district representative. He walked in with a smug smirk, but he walked out with his badge left on the table behind him, suspended pending an investigation. That was only the beginning. By lunchtime, Elijah's contact at the Arkansas Tribune had published a story titled, High School Honors Student Harassed by Local Officer, Father Speaks Out. The article was factual, focused on the truth without sensationalizing it. The evidence spoke for itself. Dash cam footage, timestamps, public complaints, and even a quote from Mr. Reynolds, Jordan's teacher, who described her as one of the most respectful and focused students he'd ever taught. This wasn't about a problem with behavior, it was personal. By the time Jordan reached sixth period, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The local news had picked up the story, and Channel 7 aired it that evening, blurring her face, but everyone at school knew who she was. The quiet, hard-working girl who'd always kept her head down, who had been humiliated in front of her peers. Now things were shifting. Tyler Keene, who had once confidently made jokes at her expense, began to lay low. His online comments disappeared, his friends grew quiet, and even the basketball player who had once laughed at his jokes avoided eye contact. No one wanted to be next. Jordan didn't boast about her newfound visibility. She didn't gloat or act out. She simply walked into school the same way she always did, except this time, her shoulders were back, and when she passed the hallway where everything had gone down, the water, the laughter, the humiliation, something changed within her. It wasn't anger, it wasn't revenge, it was peace. Outside the school, things were escalating. 3 other students, 2 black boys and a girl, came forward with their own stories of Officer Keene's harassment. They shared their experiences of being stopped without cause, falsely accused, and made to feel unsafe. Now the story wasn't just about Jordan. It was about a pattern, a troubling pattern that had gone unnoticed for too long. Elijah didn't say much in public. He granted one quiet interview. When asked why he didn't pursue lawsuits or more drastic measures, his response was simple yet powerful. Sometimes the truth is the loudest thing in the room. I don't need to destroy a man. I just need the truth to do its job. And the truth did just that. It didn't only damage reputations, it sparked meetings at the school board, forced the police department to reconsider their training, and gave a voice to other kids who had been too scared to speak up. Jordan was invited to speak at a student leadership summit in Fayetteville, where she talked about dignity, fear, and what it felt like when those in power forget that you're still just a kid. She ended her speech with a powerful statement that came not from a script or a teacher, but from the wisdom her father had given her. Silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's the moment before the truth walks into the room. Even after all of this, there was still one final moment to come, and it wouldn't involve reporters, principals, or news cameras. It would simply be a quiet, one-on-one conversation. A week later, Jordan sat across from Officer Keene in a small neutral room within the district office. No badge, no uniform, just him. A man who now looked nothing like the one who had poured water on a teenage girl in front of her classmates. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding her gaze, clearly not wanting to be there. The mediator opened the meeting, explaining the process, then stepped back, allowing silence to fill the room. Jordan was the one who spoke first. "You humiliated me," she said, her eyes locked on his. "You targeted me because your son couldn't handle a girl being smarter than him." Officer Keene shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat but still not meeting her eyes. "You followed me. You made me feel unsafe. You treated me like I didn't matter when all I did was study, work, and mind my own business." Her voice was steady, calm, no shouting, no cruelty, just the raw truth. He opened his mouth to speak but didn't know what to say. Finally, he muttered, "That wasn't my intention." Jordan blinked. "You spilled water on me in front of everyone. What exactly was your intention?" He went quiet again, and Jordan didn't need an apology. She didn't need him to say anything. What she needed was for him to hear her, to understand what he had done. She stood up, thanked the mediator, and walked out. Outside, Elijah was waiting by the car. No suit, no folder, just him, his quiet strength speaking volumes. She got in and exhaled, feeling as though she had been holding her breath for weeks. He looked over at her. "How does it feel?" he asked. She nodded, though she didn't smile. "Like I won without having to fight." He nodded back, proud. "That's what real power looks like." Jordan didn't go back to being invisible. She didn't want to. She began mentoring younger girls, joined a student justice group, and even wrote a piece for a teen column in the state paper. Not to stay in the spotlight, but to make sure her voice never went silent again. Once you've been silenced, speaking out becomes a responsibility. Jordan understood that, and that's why she spoke for those who couldn't. That's what made her powerful. As for Officer Keene, he never returned to Melrose High. His badge was suspended indefinitely. He tried to challenge it, but the system he thought was untouchable began to do what it was meant to do. Bit by bit, quietly, just as Elijah had said. It wasn't about being loud, it was about being right. So what's the lesson here? Power without integrity is nothing more than noise, while silence, when filled with truth, has the power to shake the ground. If someone has ever tried to make you feel small for doing the right thing, remember this. You don't need to match their energy. You just have to stay standing. If this story moved you, share it, talk about it, and ask yourself, who would you be if you were in Jordan's shoes or Elijah's? Real change doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it begins with one quiet voice that refuses to disappear.